Right on, boys. Appreciate you guys joining us today. I think we're going to continue this train of baseball theory discussion. I know we talked a lot about bunt coverages. Jake's sitting there feeding his face. I've got the protein bar right here. It's just
This is like the first time I've sat down all day, guys.
I
You
know,
just got to
dude.
bear with me and let me eat.
No, you're good, man. You're good. I'm going to be throwing it to you real quick, so be ready to go.
I'm ready.
But no, hey, we talked a lot about bunt coverages last week, and it's funny how often when we're doing these discussions, how much like the things that we talk about on a week-to-week basis will end up happening the following week, like when we play in our tournaments. And we didn't play a ton of small ball this year in our tournaments, but we had to, play more small ball this last weekend more than we ever have. I think our bats kind of slowed down a little bit. Guys were worn out mentally and physically for, a long summer season after being off so long. And we had to get a lot more small ball going than what we had to. And we were successful getting some bunts down. But when it came to the base running aspect, not our best. Jake and I's team actually fortunate enough to have some guys that are pretty solid on the base paths. We played somewhere around, 31, 32 games this year, Jake. Ended up stealing 120 bags on the season, which is a pretty ridiculous amount, about 85% success rate. And it's because we have a lot of guys that are really disciplined on the base paths. They understand what their strategies are. They understand what their strengths and weaknesses are and are able to play off of those very, very well. But what they do an even better job is understanding the system that we put into place and taking advantage of the things that we do, that we tell them to do in given situations. Like I said, this weekend, unfortunately not the best. We had one game in our in our second pool for the ABC tournament where we had, I think it was 5 outs on the base paths, just kind of a lack of mental discipline and doing some of those things well. But overall throughout the season did very, very well. And we're going to do a little bit of a deep dive today into some of those first and third situations, getting leads and, modern day and new and old school style type things. But I guess just to get it kicked off, Jake, what is I know we put this base running system in about 2 to 3 years ago. What do you think the most important part of becoming a good base runner? What does it take to be a good base runner in your mind?
Yeah, I think number one, you have to understand who you are and your identity as a player, right? And what I mean by that is you have to know, like, are you a base stealer because you're fast? Are you a base stealer because you get good jumps? Are you a good base runner because you draw attention from the pitcher, even though you're not stealing bags, right? So when you know your identity and what you're good at, or your personal speed and your jumps, then we can dive into how to be best at what you do, right? And Adam mentioned this weekend, and realistically, the number one thing I saw, which really hasn't been an issue with our group most of the year, is we got into big games in big situations, and everybody wanted to be the hero, right? And you guys, I know you feel that, and you've been there before, but the number one way to lose close games or big games is to try to be somebody other than yourself, right? Like it's worked all year. I don't need you to suddenly decide you're going to take over on the bases and be extra aggressive. We're going to be aggressive, but you have to know the situation of when to do it, why to do it. And you just have to understand your identity in the game, right? So if it works all game, all year for you to be yourself, why in the world do we need something different just because the situation is bigger, right? We need you to continue to trust your training and live off of that and continue to play that way. And from a base running standpoint, you can be a great base runner without great speed, but you have to be very, very disciplined in the details of understanding what are you looking for? Are you getting the best jump possible? Or there's some first and third situations to where we don't need you to get a good jump. We actually want you to get a bad one, right? Like we just need to make sure you don't get picked off. So knowing that having a good situational awareness on the bases, whether that's first or third, is huge. And the number one thing I see with youth players is when you are on third base, that is not an excuse to not get your sign from the third base coach. You still need to be aware of what's going on. And I see guys get there and say, forget about it. I'm here now. I'm just going to score and hit. Well, if your coach puts something on and you're not aware of it, that's going to be an issue when it comes to execution, right? So continue to get your sign, continue to check outfield depth and location, to check your infielders, so that you can get the best possible jump. And I think the more disciplined you are, if there's one single word to be a good base runner, it's that. Like we want to create chaos, but we want them to freak out. And the number one way to do that is for you to be more prepared and more disciplined in what you're doing at that time.
I love it. Yeah. I mean, for us, base running is a big part of our game. And you can become something that other players aren't if you are disciplined in that aspect and, you know, understanding who you are and who you're not. I mean, I think that there's a lot of guys that they can't, when they're building a resume into going into play at the next level, they can't actually say that they are an effective weapon on the base paths. But if that's something that you guys can put into your arsenal, and we're going to talk through a few of the fundamentals and stuff like that. I'm kind of scouring my Google Drive right now, trying to find the videos so we can pull those things up. We got like 30 Google Drives with all this stuff underneath there. But if you can find those tools and implement them in your practice plans, or work on them at home just as much as you work on your hitting or your fielding, your pitching, you're going to be an effective tool. Ronnie, what stage of the game do you find base running to kind of start? I think we've seen a lot of it going away at the major league level. And I don't know how far that trickles down into the college, into the high school level. I know for us, you know, we don't see as many people run the bases as much as we do, but we run it far more than I think the average team does. But like, we're at what the college level for you guys, Ronnie and Nick, like how prevalent was it for you guys?
I think it was a game changer for us at the college level. I mean, we had being a mid major that competed. I mean, we were fortunate enough to have 3 or 4 guys in the middle of the lineup that could really hit, but the other 5 guys, I mean, our job was to pretty much get to second base as early as possible. And for a lot of us being smaller, like for me, I'm a smaller dude, like so I wasn't going to hit a ton of doubles and bombs, so I needed to get myself on base and then somehow get to second. So I would say the dirt ball reads, the hit and run game, the run and hit game. You know, the 3-1 run and hit was a really big thing for us at the college level. That was huge whenever we were playing. We were big on dirt ball reads, down angle reads is what we called it. That kind of stuff literally was a game changer because most of the time, if you're on second base, you're putting a ton of pressure on the other team. So for us at the college level, that's what made us good. I would say that we won a lot of run ball games by having good culture, that guys liked each other, and being able to steal bases and actually take the extra bag. I think that's a game changer for everybody.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I'll touch on something that Ronnie mentioned, the down angle reach. So for everyone in here, you don't have to be a great base runner and you don't have to be fast to be good at down angle reads, right? So unless you're an absolute lug on first base, huge refrigerator on your back, if you read the ball in the dirt, the chances of a catcher at any level picking that ball or blocking it and then picking it up and throwing you out are slim to none, right? So if you guys get really, really good at seeing the ball down in the dirt early, whether it's a fastball, curveball, changeup, doesn't matter, and you take off even before that ball hits the ground, I'd say 95+% of the time you're probably going to be safe.
Sorry, I'm still scouring for videos. Go ahead, guys.
Oh, good.
No, you're good.
I just think that from my perspective on the base running side of things, I do think you can't just be fast, guys. And I remember there were guys on my team who literally were the slowest 60 guys on our team that were incredible base stealers because they just understood how to pick off a pitcher's tendencies, really understand exactly how, like the looks that they're looking at. So we did a chart actually on looks at certain bases. How many looks was a pitcher looking at a base? And when we would figure out a tendency of that guy, and let's say he was a one look guy and he would look over one time, a lot of times we would run because pitchers are creatures of habit. So if at that situation they pick us off, good for them. They still have to make 2 throws to get us out. He has to throw to first base, and then that guy has to throw to second base and get me out. And a lot of times if you get a good jump, you're going to be safe, especially at the youth level, guys. Understand that if you're like 13 and under, I mean, and I was actually at one of the guys in here as a showcase game the other day. Like all these pitchers are so easy to time up because it's 1-1,000 go. 1-1,000 go. You can literally step off the base, shuffle, and run, and he's not even going to see you. So I think a lot of times for a lot of you guys, understand that base running is pretty much outsmarting the pitcher because once they get in a routine and a rhythm, that's whenever they become really good. So think about a game where you got a pitcher who just is in a really good routine. He gets the ball, gets on the mound, throws a pitch. Gets the ball, gets on the mound, throws a pitch. I think a lot of times, like let's say you squeak a single by or walk, that's a time to disrupt his rhythm and his timing. If he's going to be so in rhythm and doing the same things over and over again, stealing second base might take him out of that. You know what I mean? And if he's that much in a groove, he's probably doing the same thing over and over again is the reason why he's being so successful. So we have to find a way to take those extra bases when we can.
Right, and guys, this is why it's so important to make sure we're doing our, we're paying attention on the bench and while we're not actually on base, right? Unless you're in the top of the lineup and you're one of the first guys on, you should already have an idea of what that pitcher's going to do with somebody on base, right? If you guys aren't watching and paying attention, you get to first base and you're like, now's my time to finally read this pitcher. It's already too late, right? He's already one step ahead of you. And something that you guys notice the more you just watch baseball and play baseball is for lefties, right? Like Ronnie said, pitchers are creatures of habit. A lefty, they're super, super easy to figure out what they're going to do. If they're looking at you, chances are they're going home. If they're looking at home, chances are they're coming after you, right? So these are just small little things that you guys have to watch out for. Like I said, on the bench, right, when you're not actually on first base. This is stuff that you have to figure out beforehand. So once you get to first base, you already kind of have an idea of what that guy's going to do.
And there's really 3 routes that we take to look at that. Number 1 is timing. So when we talk timing, some guys come set. We're not talking timing when they get the pitch. They come set. They might mix up their looks, but it's always, for us, it's a snap game, right? So our 1/1000 is here. So we're counting snaps. We know that old UCLA system, for some of you guys that know that, it's, okay, on the 3rd snap, he's lifting every time, let's go. Well, then the pitcher figures that out. So then they change up their timing. But guess what? When they change up their timing, they settle into a pattern of looks before they go home. So now we know the next thing to look for that they're going to go to, right? And then guess what? They figure that out and they're mixing all of it up. You don't have to go anywhere because he's not going to be throwing good strikes anymore. He's so concerned about his timing and his looks that 1 of 2 things is going to happen. He's either going to be nowhere near the zone or he's going to lay fastballs over the middle, and we're just helping our hitters see fastballs over the heart of the plate that we can drive, right? So you guys can change the game when you get on base if we go about it the right way, and you don't necessarily have to steal bases to do it, right? One of my favorite plays, and it worked this weekend, and I will tell you 90% of our families on our team have no idea that we do this. I take a ton of pride in it. If a pitcher's going from the stretch and you're on third base, we want our guy off third base as far as the third baseman is off, right? So if he's going to play deep with 2 outs back by the grass, we're going to get a third of the way down the baseline. And when that pitcher lifts his leg to go home, we're turning hips and we're taking 2 to 3 hard steps so he thinks we're stealing. Well, what happens? He sees us, his eyes go here, he picks up the plate late, and maybe we're in a full count, and now he lays one right down the middle, and we rip a double into the gap. Or he throws a ball because we got his attention over at third base, right? So there's ways that you can get in their head, that you can mix up their timing and their rhythm. And honestly, we'll bluff stealing home, and then if they don't get offended by it, we're going to steal home. Like, we're just going to straight up take home plate on you, and then you got to deal with worrying as a pitcher the rest of the game about us stealing home on you again. And we did it this weekend. We straight stole home on a dude this weekend to score the first run of a game. He's number 15 or 16th ranked kid in Michigan, and he decided to go wind up with a guy on 3rd and 2 outs. We had a 2-strike count on our 9-hole. We knew a curveball was coming. We said, screw it. He's going to strike out anyways. Let's hope it's a ball. We're taking the bag. And we put up the first run of the game en route to run rule in the team. That was honestly pretty good because we got his pitch in the 2nd inning by stealing the base, right? So if you can get on early in innings, we have the ability to change the entire inning, to make the pitches more stressful, to add to the number. And you got to think, every time they pick off, that's an extra throw. And the more throws the team makes, the more opportunities they have to make errors. So we want them to pick off 10, 15 times in a game. All you're doing is increasing the odds that one of those throws isn't accurate, and now we're moving up bases anyway, right? So it plays on both sides. Like, yes, if you're not a guy who's going to steal a ton of bases, be high attention. And what I mean by that is get him to throw over and throw over and throw over, because you know you're not going anywhere. We can lean, but we can dance a little bit. We can get off the base. Versus if you know you're going to steal in the first 3 pitches, right? I'll give a sign. Open palm means green light. And sometimes I'll put a number down, and that's telling the guy on first, hey, you have this many pitches and I need you on the next base. Get the right read, right? So if you're that guy, now we want to be low attention. We don't want him thinking about us. We don't want him worried about us stealing. And then suddenly we're at the next base because we figured out timing. We were low attention and now we moved up, right? So no matter which side of it you're on, you can be effective on the bases. Even if you steal 3 bags all year, you can find ways to be effective and to get attention and to get guys off of their timing. And it's a huge part of the game that's under taught right now, without a doubt.
Absolutely. And I bet the vast majority of you guys don't have a coach that's letting you know, like, hey, you can go when you get a read. I bet most of you are probably only stealing if they tell you to go. But sooner or later, hopefully you're going to be in a situation where they give you that kind of availability and they give you that freedom to make those reads on your own. And a lot of that is just, it's not necessarily being fast, it's being strategic and understanding the situation. And it comes with a lot of practice of it. And we continue to, always try to push that information towards our guys and getting them to understand when they need to be trying to be more aggressive versus when they shouldn't. And just different examples of that are, understanding that if you're going to get a read to go to a base, you got to understand when you want to get your best read to go and when it's okay to go even when you don't have your best read. We tell a lot of guys, as soon as we get guys on the base and we have a leadoff guy on, we always tell our players, we have a rule that, hey, we don't want any outs on the base paths before we actually commit one at the plate, because that's a big momentum shift, especially for the defense. They plunk the first leadoff guy, and then we get a dumb out on the base paths before we get one at the plate. That's, like I said, a big momentum shift. So we always tell our guys, like, hey, you have the opportunity to try to steal this bag here, but you got to make sure that it's, 90%, your best read. You know what I mean? We put it on a scale of 0 to 5. 5 being you stole that bag standing up, there's no chance that they're going to be able to throw you out, or a 0 is just literally the worst jump in the world. We tell guys, hey, we need you to be around a 4 or 5 here. No outs on the base paths before we get one at the plate. If we have 2 outs in a game and we have a guy on first, that's when Jake's got that, that holds that 3 up. He says, in 3 pitches or less, I need some attempts at second base here. Because worst case scenario, especially if we have a good hitter up to bat, if you get thrown out and he's got 1 strike on him, and then they throw a fastball down the middle and now they're 0-2 and you get thrown out on that pitch, so what? We're moving on to the next inning. We got no outs coming up, and then that guy's going to lead off. Or best case scenario, now you're on second base with 2 outs, and now we're in scoring position, and it's going to be a very rare situation where there's going to be a base hit to the outfield and we're not sending you around third. So understanding that situational awareness is going to be able to allow you to determine how aggressive you should be versus how aggressive you shouldn't be.
Can I go on to the defensive side of this real quick?
I'd love to. That's a big part.
So right now we're talking a lot about how we can steal off of pitchers, and I just caught a game last week, and I see a lot of catchers in here. So this is a really, really easy way to talk about, as catchers, how we can stop this from happening. So if you guys call your own game, make sure that you have a pickoff sign, and make sure that you have a pitch out sign, and make sure that you are very comfortable with back picking guys and being able to let other people, let the base runners know that you're not just going to allow them to take off. I think a lot of times as base runners, we look at trying to steal off of pitchers, but as catchers, we can take some of that stress away from the pitcher if we are aware of what's happening. So if a guy's getting too big of a lead, don't just throw the fastball or the slider. Tell him to pick. Right. Or if it's like let's say a 0-2 count and you want to waste a pitch and you think a guy may be anticipating breaking ball and he's got him timed up and you think he's going to steal, call a pitch out and see if you can get a guy cheating and try and throw him out. As catchers, we can do a really good job of trying to figure out a way to help the pitchers out in situations like that, especially if they're guys that get easily rattled in those types of situations. Right. So the last game, this is a pretty cool thing. I was catching a pitcher who's in the San Francisco Giants organization. Lives in this area. He doesn't have a place to play, so he's playing on our team. And he basically told me before the game that he was not going to pick anybody off. He's working on throwing his sliders and his changeups. He wants to make sure that that's what he's doing. Well, it was very quickly in the game that the other team knew exactly what he was trying to do because he wasn't really throwing that many fastballs. So what I started doing is I started back picking guys pretty consistently. Anytime a guy would get to first base, I'd back pick him because I just wanted that base runner to know that if he was going to steal, he was going to have to do it from a shorter lead because no matter what, if he took a big secondary, I was throwing somebody out. And so I think as catchers, you guys can do a really good job of that because especially if a pitcher doesn't feel comfortable picking off, like a guy like John Lester, for you Cub fans out there, he doesn't like picking off. So I think it makes it tougher for the catchers to actually do their job. Like Contreras has to do a way better job of throwing guys out when Lester's pitching because he doesn't like to pick guys off. And everybody in the world knows that. So I think a lot of times we can do a really nice job catching from a catcher's perspective and from an infielder's perspective, keeping those guys there. So the last thing I got is runner on second base, middle guys. You guys can basically what we want to try and do in situations where there's a fast guy on second base or an aggressive base stealer on second base, we want to try and get to a point where the guy at second, the base stealer, is actually moving backwards towards the bag as the pitcher's lifting his leg. So that's a little bit of a timing thing. but it's also how good of a job you're doing as a middle guy on making sure that that guy thinks that you're going to the base. In college, we used to have a look system. We used to have a touch system that we would do to the pitchers to let them know how many looks they were giving in that situation, so that we could kind of figure out if we were going to backpick the guy or pick him off or whatever the situation was. I think if you guys implement something like that, it's really valuable, because then at least all the middle guys and the pitcher and the catcher are on the same page on what's happening. No one's kind of getting caught out to dry. I know a lot of times when we didn't implement that, I would get caught going to the base while a pitcher was lifting, and now I'm out of position. So having a system like that where you have a touch system or a look system, I think is really valuable from the middle infield perspective.
I 100% agree with that. And I know we talked through that last week a little bit of some different systems you guys could put in. And now we're talking about it on the offensive side. So yeah, I mean, that helps for sure. And back picks, even if they're safe, as long as you can be accurate, it without a doubt changes their mindset and adds just another variable that they have to consider with how far they go. So that's an important piece. The one thing John Lester does well, so pitchers, if you have a terrible move, Lester's about a 1-1 to the plate consistently, which means he's really quick to the plate. So although you're going to get a big lead, he's going to be quick enough to the plate to at least give his catcher a chance to throw out the runner. What we do is we see a dude that's a 1-5 to the plate with a leg lift, and your catcher has no chance, right? So we love, our favorite guy to run on is the best catchers that we see, because we're going to steal on the pitcher, and then we know catcher's going to get mad. Him and pitcher are no longer on the same page because catcher's pissed, and now we can run all day because they're not even communicating anymore. So you have to get with your pitcher on the defensive side for the catchers out there and make sure, like, if one of them happens, go out and talk to him. And, like, it can be quiet, but go and tell him, like, dude, you're making me look terrible and I can't do my job because you're not giving me a chance. Like, I need you to slide step. If you're not going to throw over, I need you to be quicker. I need you to slide step, whatever that is, right? And the other thing on the offensive standpoint is based on count, that in some situations determines what kind of jump you need in order to steal the bag, right? For instance, 0-2, sometimes a good pitch to run. Sometimes you get caught because they throw a high fastball. But what pitch do 90% of catchers call after an 0-2 high fastball? We got that curveball or slider in the dirt, right? So if you're on first and you see high fastball, now we know on a 1 to 5 scale, my jump can probably be a 2 or 3, and I'm fine that next pitch because catcher's got to pick something or block something in the dirt. I'm going, right? So if you can be aware of counts and situation, even if you're an average speed guy, now you can pick and choose the right opportunities to at least take that chance and go, right? So, and that's going to be different based on speed, but it does make it possible for an average speed guy to steal 10 bags in the summer just going on the right count, right pitch, right count. 3-2 count with a guy that's 85% contact, make him put the ball in play. He's done it all year, right? Steal the bag. Now we got movement defensively. There's no longer a force out that's going to be easy for them to get. You've put pressure on them, okay? So there's different situations to where, you know, maybe I go from a green light to a straight steal sign, and there's other situations that we take the green light away. For instance, 2-0 count, probably getting a fastball, right? Unless the pitcher's really good and works backwards, 2-0 count's not a great pitch to run because he's not going to throw it out of the zone. He's trying to pound the zone, and your hitter is probably trying to lift a ball into a gap. So the last thing you need taken off on that pitch, 2-0, is him to line out and you to be doubled off at first base. So 2-0 for us is typically we're not going anywhere, right? So if you can look at it from a pitcher-catcher perspective and even from a hitter's perspective of in this count, what do I expect them to throw? That increases your chance as a base runner to take bags in that sense as well.
Yeah, and I'll just touch on that again. And this is why it's super, super important to make sure we're paying attention the whole game. Like Ronnie said earlier, pitchers are creatures of habit, and it's the same thing when they're throwing pitches, right? And same with coaches. If you see something's working against a team, you're going to continue to go back to it, right? So if you're on first base, and let's say you're 2-3 at-bats in the game, you're going to have an idea of what pitchers are going to throw in certain counts, and that can really, really help you out on the base pass. Because like Jake said, you know, it's pretty standard. A lot of coaches and a lot of pitchers go by the book. You know, 0-2, we're either going to throw an off-speed pitch nowhere close, or we're throwing a fastball high. You're going to know that early on, right? So you can kind of get an idea of whether do I run on the 0-2 pitch because I know it's probably an off-speed, or do I run on the 1-2 pitch because they just threw a high fastball, right? So those are some things that we definitely should pay attention to throughout the game to help us, you know, on the base pass as well.
And touching on that real quick, sorry, Adam.
You're good.
When you look at coaches and teams being creatures of habit, we have a very strict and firm rule with us. If something is working, we're not going to change it until our opponent proves to us that we need to. Meaning we're going to keep running in those counts until they show that they're going to switch up what they're doing and be successful. Because we know, as Nick said, pitchers are creatures of habit. They get 0-2. They don't want to throw a specific pitch there because they know where they want to go. Well, we also know where they want to go. So if we continue to do what we do, all we do is we force them to change what they're doing, right? And as soon as you can get a team to do something that they're uncomfortable doing, you've already won that game, right? Because now they're no longer comfortable. So if you can win that game early in the first inning, in the second inning, like make people do things that they haven't trained or prepared to do, because nobody's good at that, right? Like if you give me a calculus test right now, I'm not prepared for it. I can't do that. So if you ask the players to do something they haven't practiced, it's not going to work out well, right? So your job is to put them into those positions. So when we talk about creating pressure on the bases, it's not just running aimlessly, right? We want to be fearless in the way that we run, but we also don't want to be stupid, right? We need to know the situation, understand that, and go. And if you get thrown out, if you can tell your coach, hey, based on a sequencing, I expected a curveball, that's my bad. Every coach in the world should be okay with that response if you have a reason for doing it, right? You're going to make mistakes, but we have to make calculated mistakes, right? And there's a difference in doing that and just running aimlessly and hoping. And I bring that up because we had a kid this weekend, bottom of the 7th inning, tie game, would have sent us to the top 8 of a 120 team tournament of the amateur baseball championship. He gets a leadoff single. We lay down a bunt to move him up to second. We were in the bottom half of the order. Well, bunts it down the first baseline. First baseman picks it up. Our kid slides in the middle of the baseline because he didn't want to get tagged. I love it, right? He's not going to run into a tag. Well, the guy trips over him. He's sitting in the infield, and our guy who just moved up to second on the bunt decides that he's going to try to go first to third while the ball's in the infield because he thought the guy wasn't paying attention. Well, he gets thrown out, and we lose in the 8th inning, right? We don't need that. So when we talk about just do what you need to do, stay within yourself, that's what I mean. He stays at second. Maybe we don't score, but we at least have 2 hitters that have a chance versus now we have 2 outs, nobody on because we decided to try to take 2 bases on an infield bunt, right? So we don't need that. We don't need anybody ever to be the hero. And honestly, one of the things that we take a lot of pride in is if you're up with a winning run on third and you take a walk, you're incredible, dude. You're locked into your approach and you trust your teammates and you're going to pass it on to them because you didn't get a pitch to hit. And that's awesome. Like that takes a really selfless, quality baseball player and quality teammate to do something like that because most guys go up there and they want to be the one to get the big hit, right? Everybody wants to be the hero. And the guy that coaches value and that teammates value is typically not the guy that gets the big hit. It's the one that did something small to allow that guy to get the big hit, right? There's a lot of value in being that type of player that on a team setting and in a recruiting setting, that does not go unnoticed as much as you think it does.
No, I absolutely love that. And I think we're telling you guys a lot of good strategy points and things that can help you step up your game and everything. But as simple as what leadoffs I think should be in baseball, the amount of kids that we see at even top level travel baseball not getting good leads still astounds me. So I would say that, me getting ready to break down leadoffs with you guys is more for just the younger crowd in here. But just in case any of you older guys are dum-dums on the base path and don't know how to do it, I think it's still a good review for you guys. So I don't know how, prevalent this system and these ideas are with other programs, but I want to share with you guys at least what we do from the BAM side as far as the individual basics that we teach from 8U all the way up to 18U as far as what our leadoffs go. So I'm going to share my screen here just to be able to kind of show you guys a little bit here of, just show you guys a couple of videos of what we do from the BAM side. Can you guys see this okay, this PowerPoint presentation?
Yes, sir.
So just go show you.
Full screen it if possible.
I will try. Again, still trying to learn.
I'm asking a lot. I'm sorry.
You are. Again, this is about as full. No, hang on. We got to probably go to view here. Guys, I just got a Mac and I'm dumb. I don't know how to use this at all.
That's how I feel.
Slideshow.
Yeah, there you go.
Play from current slide. Let's go. Okay, here we go. This is helpful. So we have 2 different types of leads, okay? And I'm just going to kind of show you the basics a little bit of what we have here. On this video, we got a couple guys that are really good examples of the things that we want to do. Guy on the left here His name's Trey Smith. He's been in our program, sub for us a little bit, 14U. Now we're going into 17U. He's been there the whole time, is also a player at Jake's High School. So he has this base running system, and he's dealing with it for 365 days a year. So he is one of the best guys out there doing it. Guy on the right here right now, hopefully going to get an offer from Butler University, starting next week. But Sam right here led our team in bases stolen this year and not the fastest guy on the team. So if that tells you anything. But just want to give you guys a little bit of what we do here as far as our leads are concerned. So we have two different types of leads, like we said, a traditional lead and a modern lead, okay? Our traditional lead is pretty much what everybody else basically does. I would say the vast majority of teams don't run this modern system where there's shorter leads getting timing. But what we basically look for is, from a traditional lead stance, is about a 10 to 12-foot lead. And what that looks like there is a right-left shuffle, and then in an athletic stance. Get there right there. So about a 10 to 12-foot lead. So when we actually test to see how fast our guys are, we don't test what their 90-foot speed is or their 90-foot time. We test what their 80 to 78-foot time from first to second is. And then that helps us determine whether or not we're going to have guys do a modern steal or whether or not we're going to do a traditional steal. Because if the timing from the ball releasing from the pitcher's hand and the ball being thrown to second base and being caught and applied for a tag is slower than what our guy can get there just from a traditional lead, that's probably the easiest way to get there and just trying to steal on a good off-speed count situation. So what we look for, again, is a 10 to 12-foot lead. It's a right-left shuffle. What you can see from here a little bit is Trey's right foot is slightly ahead of his left foot, which gives him a little bit of a closed stance and makes it easier for him to dive back to first base in the case of a pickoff move. If we're going to give Trey a straight steal sign from here, he'll drop his right foot back a little bit and open up his stance towards second base. Very subtle move, and the only people that are going to really notice it are anybody that's possibly looking for it. But we never had anybody pick up on that unless we're playing another BAM team that might be looking for it. But it just allows you to either get back to first or get to second on a straight steal. So usually what we want to do is mark our place in the dirt. There should be a step and a dive back on a pickoff move. And if it's less than that, we can get out a little bit further. Or if the guy's got a really good move and we're trying not to push the issue a little bit, mark your spot in the dirt and just try to find a good spot for you to where you can get back on a bang-bang play. That's what we need. We don't need you to get back by a mile. Being able to get back on a bang-bang play that way we're closer to second on our lead is what we're looking for then. So, again, right foot, right, left, shuffle in that situation. So play that off.
Get back.
And what Trey does and what Sam does in these videos are good examples of good secondary stances here. So I'm going to mute this so you don't have to hear me talking over myself multiple times, but we'll do it again. What we're looking for in a secondary lead is as that ball comes out, staying low to the ground on your shuffles, getting good intent and good motion towards second base, but a good enough secondary to where as soon as that catcher catches the ball, we have to get a clean catch and get back as quick as we can. Because guys like Ronnie will try to throw you guys out if you guys get too lazy out on the base paths. And so making sure you get good enough secondary, that way you're getting good movements towards second, but you can still get back to first if we need to. So this right here is Sam. Sam's going to do a same type of lead here, right, left, shuffle. And he's going to have a secondary lead here. And on contact, he takes off towards second. What I want you to notice about Sam's secondary lead here is the direction in which his chest is facing during that secondary lead. He's always got his chest facing the baseball until that ball is put into play. So his secondary lead doesn't turn his chest until he commits to the bag. I think it's a real important piece. All those things are really important when it comes to working on your leads. And if you don't practice them on a regular basis, you're going to be in a lot of trouble. So I'm going to give you an example of what our modern lead system looks like. A modern lead is going to be a shorter lead than a traditional lead. We're looking about 6 to 8 feet here, making it to where once you shuffle and you get timing on the pitcher, you are landing in the distance of a traditional lead. And the difference between this is it's a right-left shuffle, and you're about, like I said, 6 to 8 feet here. But Trey's going to just be standing here in a nice, relaxed stance. We're trying to look unassuming to the pitcher, make it look like we're not going to go anywhere, but we're working off of timing. When the pitcher looks across his left shoulder, or as a lefty just looks right at you and they see this short lead here, they're not too concerned about you stealing until they realize that we're running a certain system here and trying to get our jumps. But you're not going to get a ton of pickoff moves here. And even if you do, we're just going to be getting back, shuffling into the bag, and kind of turning our shoulder in towards the first baseman, kind of hoping that we can kind of, impede a throw there and get something thrown to the fence. But like I said, you're not that far off of the bag. You're just a little bit here. And what he's going to work for here is working on timing of the pitcher. And he's going to shuffle into, this is a little bit too far here, but where this is way too far. Trey's going to get picked off here. This is one of those 6 outs that we have on the base paths last game. But what you're doing here is you're getting into that unathletic stance, and you are, once you get the pitcher's timing and you think that leg's going to lip, we're going to shuffle. And when we land, that right foot hits the ground, you're going to imagine that's a button. And when you land on that button, if that button activates the pitcher's motion towards home, that means you got good timing and you can take off towards second. If you get bad timing, you're going to retreat a little bit, just like Trey did, making sure that you're in a safe point. So this is going to be an example of Trey, I believe, getting that secondary lead here, shuffling into it. He lands. And you can see the momentum that he has towards second base and where he lands. He's in the same distance he would be on a traditional lead. But our idea of that is, I'm going to exit out of this share screen here so you guys can see what I'm talking about. Where's that at? Stop share. There it is. Okay. So here's the idea behind our modern and traditional leads. So the traditional lead, obviously we're not getting timing. We're kind of staying stationary, just trying to get a good secondary, and we're not going anywhere unless coach tells us. If we're in the modern lead, that's where Jake's giving that open palm. We're telling you how many pitches we want to be able to try to get you to second base and getting a good timing on that pitcher. The idea behind that is basically we're going to be taking off from the exact same spot. But it's like you got 2 cars at a start line. This car right here is going to be sitting right at the start line. This car is going to start back. And if this car creeps up to the line and then they both take off at the same time, the car on the right is going to win every single time because it's got momentum, even if this car runs a little bit faster. So that's our idea of that. And I would say probably less than 5 of our stolen bases throughout the year were actually done from a traditional lead because our guys are so disciplined and practices so much from the modern side that getting that timing is a very easy thing for them to do. And you'll realize if you try this thing in a game, you're going to be blown away at how often pitchers are doing the exact same thing, not only for themselves, but how often pitchers have the exact same timing anyway. We always tell guys we're going to start off with 3 clicks, right? And thinking that after he comes set, 1, 2, 3, after that 3rd click, that's when he's going to start going. I'd say easily 70% of the pitchers that we face revert back to that timing. And even if they change it and speed it up, or slow it down, it's pretty predictable what they're going to do next. If they slow it down and they take forever between and their 5 clicks, vast majority of the time they're being told to change up their timing. The next one's going to be really fast. So if it's practiced, it can be a very predictable and useful tool. And I think if you guys look that up, stealbases.com, we got a ton of videos on it. We're going to have it in our coaches cert. You guys want to practice that, we'll walk you guys through any videos that we have, but it can turn your guys' game around.
And I have to tell you my favorite part of all of it, and it has nothing to do with even stealing. The best part is with that 6-foot lead at the front of the bag, you look extremely close to the base. And when the pitcher is worried that you're going to steal, they'll pick off and you look like you're standing on the bag already. So they go from picking off and everybody's laughing at him, like, why are you trying to pick him off? He's on the bag. And then the next pitch you're gone and you're at second. So it messes with their head so much that you can take a really good pitcher and knock them out of the game in the first couple of innings just because they're not even focused on pitching anymore. And it's really, really fun to do. Because one of our 3 goals every game is to piss somebody off. I think that's a good one for any team, right? And ideally not your own team or teammates, right? Like you want to make somebody mad on the other team, not by being a jerk or playing the wrong way, but by doing things so well and so disciplined that they don't know how to fix it or how to stop it, right? So that combo of pick off, you're already on the bag, why am I even worried about you, to the next pitch, you being on second base, is one of the most fulfilling accomplishments you can have as a base runner. And we see our dudes just grinning ear to ear at second because they know that they just pissed somebody off. They know that you can check that box, goal accomplished, and now we're just going to keep pressing that button all game. Keep doing it like you're a little sibling. Just keep pressing that button and watch them implode. And one of our favorite things with it too is watching coaches and the other team take off their hat and throw it in the dugout because they don't know how to stop it. right? It's so fun to watch them because they haven't seen it. They just don't know what to do against it. So they reach the point of frustration where stuff just starts flying in the dugout. That's when we know we've won. When stuff starts flying, we're like, all right, we're in business. Steal again. Let's go. Run that thing back. And that's when it gets pretty cool. So it's a fun style to play. And I can tell you, Adam and myself would be very, very open. If you guys have further questions about like that system, if you DM either one of us or the DC account, we're more than open to share anything and everything. We tell our opponents that too, because the reality is knowing it is one thing, but stopping it is a whole different beast. So you just can't know it and assume that you're going to be able to stop it. It takes a lot of work to figure it out.
Absolutely. And I'm going to share my screen again here because we got a really good video that's going to give you guys an understanding of just how valuable this thing is. And it's from the guys that have done it initially, right? And really mastered it. So it's the guys at Wright State. This is a video that we have in one of our presentations that shows a good example of them practicing a few things, but I'm just going to fast forward to the in-gameness here, the in-game video that they have here, so you guys can see just how valuable this thing is. They run probably, I would say, 30 minutes of base running drills a day just because this is such a big part of their game. And the best part about it is everybody knows that they run this, and it's still so indefensible that they're still so successful at it. So what I want you guys to recognize here is, as we push play here, is looking at when the timing of their jumps at and how often that happens at the exact same time that the pitcher is getting ready to start making his motion towards home, and see how much they're stealing bags by. And this is at a high level Division I. A lot of these are during, I've seen a lot of video in this video. There's some of them during, all right, here. A lot of this is during, games against Louisville. So guy on second here, see that shuffle into that and just how much he's stolen third base by. Shuffle that there, go back there. Look at the difference here. Shuffle.
This is nasty.
Just
gone.
Nowhere near. These are top level Division I catchers.
He gone.
This is at Louisville. That's embarrassing for Louisville.
Steals home. Yep.
Black out the face because it's embarrassing.
That's when you know it's bad.
These are guys that have trusted the process, that run with intent and with purpose, and that understand that just that little shuffle there. I mean, no throw. And not only does this obviously allow you to get extra bases in a game, which is definitely one of the big determining factors in whether or not you win or lose, but what this does to a pitcher's mentality and what this does to a catcher is just so rude on so many levels, and it affects the game like crazy. It's harder to stick pitches because they know that guys are going to be running. They come up more often to throw when they're going to be doing this, even when they're not supposed to. Pitchers lose command so quickly. Catchers can't get the ball out on time, so they make bad throws like that. And it's a very complicated system. Like I said, if you don't practice it on a regular basis, I just that smile on his face there is just so rude, but I love it every second of it. Yeah, if you guys can find ways to implement stuff like that and become a better base runner and put pressure on the defense when you're out there, it's going to be hard to take you out of a game. Even if you have a middle of the road batting average and you're competing with another guy that might be hitting the ball a little bit harder than you right now, but when you find your way on base, we have guys on our BAM team. There's a guy on our team that hit over 300 this year, but he was a singles machine and he was slow and he didn't buy into the base running system and he couldn't go anywhere. And we hit guys that had a lower batting average than him because we knew when they got on base, it was potentially one or two bags, and we're going to be able to get this guy in. It's just a big piece.
I want to look at that a little, like when you look at the Wright State stuff, like me as a defender, I'm thinking about it from a catcher's perspective, like it's just really annoying. You know what I mean? Like it really is. Like you're literally like, what can I literally cannot do anything right now because he's not even stealing on me, and I can't even make a throw half the time. But if you really looked at a lot of the times that were in there, like they were like 305 to like 32 on all their stolen bases. That's extremely, extremely, extremely fast. And I'm going to guarantee that most of those guys really aren't that quick in a 60.
Nope.
It's just that they're so unbelievably good at getting on time. And I think Mike Hobson here, I think about him for a second, like as a catcher, like what the heck are you going to do about something like that? Like what can you do from your position behind home plate that by the time you receive it, the guy's 2/3 of the way to second base, so you have no throw. So I think that that's definitely the new wave of base running. We implemented the shuffle from second base. I really, really like that. First base we didn't, but I will say this, that we didn't get to second base on singles a lot. A lot of the times it was doubles. I think that we struggled stealing bases at first because we were stopped, but at second, when we got to second base, it was very easy for us to steal third base because we did implement that. So for a lot of you guys, I think that it's kind of an early secondary is the way I look at it. It's kind of like taking a controlled secondary before the pitcher throws it. If you look at a lot of those guys from Wright State, the one guy who was going from first to second, he kind of hesitated a little bit because he didn't know if the pitcher was going to pick or not. But he was already so far away that once the pitcher decided to lift up, he was already gone. So understand that when you are taking those secondaries, that you do have to be in control of your body too, just in case something does happen.
Yeah,
and last thing, go ahead. Sorry, last thing. In a situation where you're stealing like that, if the guy hits a line drive, keep going. Sorry, I just wanted to add that in there because you're already out. You're already doubled off. So understand that there's no reason to go back. Just keep going.
Because in the if they make an error, if the ball gets through, you can take that extra base. That's why, right? You're not trying to fight your way back to first base. You're probably going to be out. So the point I wanted to make is, like with everything we're talking about today, you notice there's two things that are going to happen, right? If you're an aggressive base running team and you guys are disciplined and good at it, either one, the team's going to continue to do what they've been doing and you continue to take bags, or two, they're going to try and do something that they most likely have in practice, which usually doesn't end well for that team, right? They're going to try and make some crazy pickoff play. They're going to rush their throws. And they're going to make errors, right? So being disciplined on the base pass can completely change the outcome of a game and even a tournament if you guys are disciplined and you follow, if your coach has good set of rules, follow those. It can change the entire outcome of a game just because teams don't prepare for that, right? How many teams do you think prepared for Wright State to do what they did? To the extent where they could stop it. Clearly not many, right?
Now, Nick makes a huge point there about being disciplined in this because this is a great weapon to have, but it can put you in harm's way very quickly if you're not disciplined on the base paths. And like we stole 120 bags, but it's not because we attempted to steal 300 plus times. You know what I mean? We only got caught stealing, I think it was like 15 or 16 times. So our guys are good enough at it that they can recognize when their timing is poor, that they can stay put and still not put themselves at risk of getting picked off or thrown out. Now that didn't work out this last ABC tournament. We got picked off about, I think it was 3 times in one game. It was pretty brutal.
2 of them without the green light. That's what made
even without the green light.
You got to know your situation, man.
Yeah, but like that's the biggest thing is like it's not kamikaze base running where you're just running recklessly and and obviously you're stealing a lot of bags, but if you don't have a high success rate of it, you got to turn it back a little bit. Otherwise, and let your hitters hit a little bit and try to be productive in other fashions. But if you can add this in, the biggest thing that it did for us is those 120 bags that we stole, those were extra bases that we got that we didn't have to bunt guys over, right? And that we could get guys into scoring. We had guys with that scored way more runs than the average guy because they were able to get in a scoring position. We had guys that had way more RBIs than what the average. I mean, like our 8-hole hitter had a ton of RBIs, not because he's just this tremendous hitter and this clutch dude, but because we had so many times guys would get on first, get into scoring position, and then we'd find ways to get them in. So being a great base runner will make it to where your team does not have to sacrifice outs, with the bat. You can just get over there, and then they can try to get you in with the bat instead.
Yeah, and 2 things on base running. Number 1, our goal as a team is 85% success rate. And what I mean by that is if we're 90 plus, we're not running enough. Right? If we're safe that much, we're being too cautious. If we're under 85, now we're getting silly, right? If we're closer to 80, 75%, now we're getting silly and we're running too much. So 85, we're going to get thrown out sometimes, right? So we can't be afraid of that. We know sometimes the pitcher's going to be quick, catcher's going to have a hose and make a great throw. You tip your cap, and next time you get on, let's do it again because we know we're going to be successful more often than not, right? So if you are a base stealer, the number 1 thing you have to understand is you will get thrown out, and you have to be okay with that, right? As long as your success rate matches around that percentage, you're in a good spot. But 2, if you think about your own game, there are not a lot of youth level players that go up and just hit bomb after bomb. There's some, but there's not a whole bunch that are like legitimate power threats every time they come up. But think about it this way. A walk now, it's not just a walk. That's a double for you, right? A hit by pitch, that's a double. A bloop single, that's a double, right? So you take your offensive value and you look at who you are as a player, and we add this to our identity. And now we say, yeah, I might not hit doubles, but I get doubles because I hit singles and steal the bag. So watch me take both of these, right? So you look at your value differently. You look at a walk differently because you know in 3 pitches or less, you're going to turn that into a double and put yourself into scoring position anyway, right? So that takes pressure off of you as a hitter. Now you don't have to try to hit bombs every time. We don't have to be gap to gap in a 2-strike count. We can hit a single knowing full well what that means and the pressure that we can put on, right? So you got to look at it from your own personal identity too, right? And figure out that side of it and how that plays and what that does. And there's 2 guys that most of the time they don't expect to steal. Number one is the big guys, right? I have a 250-pound first baseman at my high school that stole 18 last year. Legitimately stole 18 bases in high school baseball at 250 pounds because nobody expects him to run. So he just goes, right? He gets a good jump and he goes. Number 2, if you're a catcher, and I know we got a few in here, and you don't get a courtesy runner until 2 outs, take the bag because you're a catcher. So they don't think that you're running, right? And play it off. Like ask your coach, tell your coach before the game, like, hey, I want to run for myself. And then when you get on base, be like, man, this sucks. I got to run. Like just joke with the first baseman. Like, what do they think I'm going to do? I'm going to catcher. And then in 2 pitches, you're like, see ya, never mind. I'm just going to take second because you're handing it to me, right? Because they relax for those guys. So you guys have an opportunity based on the low intent and effort that they're going to show you to just take bags anyway, right? So figure out where it fits for you, how you can maximize it, but it can be a huge piece into who you are and how you play. And if that is the case, your team starts to get behind it. And like, there's a culture built around stealing bags that gets really, really fun. And that's a fun type of baseball to play. What we tell our guys is like, your parents have to pay admission for most of these games. You might as well give them a show, right? That's what it is. They're paying for your entertainment. So your job is to go entertain. And one great way to do that is go out and steal bags, right? Have fun with it. Understand you are an entertainer. When you look at it that way, it gets really, really cool to go out and play that way.
Yeah, and
2 years, Huff. That sucks, man.
some of those teams are the worst teams to play against. It puts the defense really on edge, and it makes it really, really hard to, cover the bag for a runner and then cover the field for a hitter. So it really does open up a lot in the game if you guys can do it well.
Absolutely.
For sure.
Absolutely. Well, we didn't even get into firsts and thirds. I guess
Oh, no.
we did all base running today, which is
It's
fine.
going to spend 40 minutes searching for videos. So
No, it's good. It's good. We got 2 minutes left. Hey, I just want to, I don't know. I know every area is kind of in a different place in regards to timing of tryouts and teams and all that. But I just want to remind you guys, when you start looking at tryouts and teams, if you're looking other places in these last 2 minutes, my advice to you is to understand that the ball is in your court, right? Your job is to play for a team that's going to develop you, that's going to give you the right opportunities to play in the right tournaments and do that. But the flip side of that is it's also your job to get recruited, right? Your coaches can help, but you got to put in the work and you got to improve and you got to do that. Okay. So don't listen to, you're going to get 90% of the coaches that tell you exactly what you want to hear. See through that, right? If they tell you how good you are, you probably don't want to play there. The reality is you should be looking for a coach that says, yeah, you're good, but we got to get your hands quicker and your step progressions are a little slow. And this is where I can improve you, because you want to play for someone that's going to make you better, not someone that's going to tell you how great you are, right? We got parents for that. Our job as coaches is to make you better and to challenge you in that way. So understand they might want you. That doesn't mean you have to go there. The ball is 100% in your court and you get to make that decision for your benefit and your future. All right. I know this is a crazy time. This is my least favorite 2 weeks of the year. Because we talk to a lot of parents and the question is, what are you going to offer my kid? It's like, I'm going to offer him a chance to compete for a spot to play and the ability to learn and develop. That's it, right? That's all we can offer as coaches. I'm not going to tell you he's a starter. He's got to earn that. He's got to earn every single thing that he does. So I think you guys being in here, I respect y'all enough to tell you, like, that's what you want to look for, not the dude that's going to tell you how awesome you are, right? We got enough people doing that. We need honesty around here at this point. So that's my last piece. I'm out.
Yeah.
I got one thing. Last thing. Showcase guys. Guys that are moving into showcase, high school guys. Find a team with a good culture and that have people that are on the same page as you, that want the same things that you do, that are looking for the same progressions and development that you're looking for. If you're in a situation that You know, just like kind of Jake said, but if you're in a situation where you're not in a culture that has guys that are pushing you to become better, you might not be in the right fit or right situation for you either. So find good culture, find guys that have the same mission and same goals, and you guys will see your careers go this way. That's all I got.
Awesome. Thanks, guys. Appreciate you. We'll see you next week.
Peace.
See ya.
See you guys.
Yeah.